you describe the heart and mission of your organization, and what your purpose with these businesses and with these foundations? What is the purpose behind all of them?
Sure. At the core, what we're doing is we are trying to use the latest developments in technology and business thought to generate social impact. So traditionally, social impact tends to be in the sphere of the charity sector. What we are doing is we are using the standard for business models to focus on generating social impact, and that's quite a unique hybrid model that's emerging, and we are in that space.
Okay, yeah. So can you so that I understand what you mean by that, kind of clarify also for our listeners, because if I'm confused, I'm sure there's at least a percentage of other people that are confused. So in what ways is that different, or in what ways is that introducing a different idea for what it is you're trying to accomplish?
It's just using a different mechanism to achieve the same outcome. So, for instance, I mean, we strongly believe that the scale of the issues that we are looking to deal with, you simply can't deal with by making a donation to a charity or to the UN. So if you look currently at the refugee crisis, for instance, I mean, there are well over 80 million people globally who are displaced. Now, the causes of displacement are, the biggest one is climate change, followed by conflict. So if you look at Ukraine, etc., and then you have political turmoil like in Myanmar. So if you look at those examples, they're not one-off examples anymore. Before 20, 30 years ago, they used to be one-off examples. Now it's morphed every day. These situations are occurring on a daily basis, but the institutions that we have to deal with them, they were structured back in the 1950s. So the UN is a product of the 1940s and 1950s. A lot of the charities that we know and love today, they do really good work, but the approach that they take originates from those days. So what we are doing is we are saying that we can generate a similar impact. We can support more people in a way as a standard business, but by putting these people first. So, for instance, the way we design our products and services is focused around the needs of these people there. And then we use the same, I mean, if you go to Coca-Cola, for instance, they know exactly who their customers are. They know exactly what the problems they're trying to solve for them. And they know how much it's going to cost, where the money's going to come from, how they're going to distribute the value they generate, etc. That's the approach we're looking to take by just focusing on social impact. So our focus is on refugee communities across the world, and within those refugee communities, we focus on post-conflict communities. So these are communities where refugees have come back. The security issues are behind them. They're trying to pick themselves up, and most of them don't qualify for any support at all. NGOs are there trying to help them out as best they can, but there's always a gap between what the NGO can do for them and what their needs are. And usually they're in the developing world, where the country itself is struggling with their own institutions at the best of times anyway. So, I mean, so if you look at the kind of issues they have, they're quite similar across the board in different countries. The kind of solutions they have, I mean, they're not custom designed around what their needs are. So we are using the latest developments in technology and business thought to help us achieve that.
Interesting, very interesting. So going back to sort of how this began, just so we can understand. So you're one of the co-founders, and so you with some of the other individuals. How did this start for you all? What was the sort of origin story behind this organization?
Sure. A close friend of mine, he's from the Swat Valley in northern Pakistan. So we met after about 30 odd years. We went to school together. We used to play in the same football team, etc. And 30 years later, we bumped into each other, and I was quite surprised that he wasn't living back in the Swat Valley. I had known about the problems they had there. I known about the security issues they had there. So it wasn't a surprise he was away from it, but I was surprised that he was away for that duration. So as we got talking, it became evident that he still had a strong passion for that place where he was born, his family's from. He still had that strong emotional attachment to it, and he wanted to stay involved with that region there as much as he could. So we came up with the concept of the Swat Valley Guild. And within a few months of that concept, we took it to the UNICEF FinTech Jam for Good. At the UNICEF FinTech Jam for Good, we built a team around that project, and very quickly we realized within the first day of that hackathon was that we won't be able to use technology the way we originally thought, because the terrain, because security issues, etc. Even though they were declining, they still had significant security issues in those days. Terrain in terms of it's quite high up in the mountains, so it's very difficult to bounce a signal off at the best of times and these kind of issues there. So we then decided to spin off BizGees from Swaz Valley Guild, and it became the project it has today. So today we still work with Swaz Valley Guild supporting the artisans there, but we also work with the Lera tribe in northern Uganda, supporting micro businesses or supporting the refugees there to become entrepreneurs through training, inventory, and business mentoring. So those are the two communities that we work with now. And alongside them, we also have generated a fivefold impact. So the Swaz Valley Guild is one, the Lera tribe is two. The third one is we work with local undiscovered artists in London to start with, and we help them build their brands and earn a decent living. So 90% of artists, they tend not to make a decent living from their art. It doesn't matter how technically professional they are. It's just a matter of the public not knowing that they exist. For instance, the ones that we work with, they are really well trained, really well educated. One went to Chelsea College of Art in London, which is a very famous school. Another got exhibited in Tate Gallery in London, which is quite a famous gallery there. Even though they have these benefits, they aren't in the mainstream of the art world. So that's something that we're trying to do. And the way we do that is by working with local talent. So these are students or young professionals who are looking to build up the work experience. So we work with them so they can build up the work experience to support the artists, to build their brands and earn a decent living, and share off those profits and go out to support the communities that we work with. So if you look at that system and structure I just mentioned, it's very complex, but it's using the best and the latest thoughts in supply chain, in eco-friendly production, in ethical, how to organize ethical supply chains, etc. And just using the philosophy of the sharing economy embedded in it, it allows us to scale up that business globally without incurring as big a cost as a standard organization would, doing the exact same thing that we do. So that allows more impact to be generated, more people to benefit.
Awesome. And, I think this is a really cool concept because you're bringing all sorts of different elements in business and how, artistry and issues, and you're bringing it all together. And so you're helping refugees, especially with getting their art out into the world so that they're able to build a business income and so on. And I think you're definitely on point with 90% of really any artist isn't really making money, right? And so, and to add a conflict of, refugees and the status of that hardship, that just, compounds. And so I think it's really great what you guys are doing. I think it would be great if you could explain a little bit more to our audience and to us as well as how fintech, which is finance tech, how fintech has been woven into this to help the problem and what that looks like.
When you first started this project, we had designed it to be a peer-to-peer micro-lending platform to refugees living inside UN camps. So there was a camp in Jordan called Zadari camp, and the idea was that we would work with refugees who have set up micro businesses inside the UN camps there, and then we would lend them money. They would set up the business, scale up the existing businesses. They would pay back those loans, and we would just use it in different UN camps across the world. That idea was great till we actually went there, and we saw the situation on the ground in the UN camps, and we walked away realizing it was going to be very, very difficult to set up a fintech business which demanded a lot of compliances, legal compliances. For instance, counter-financing of terrorism, safeguards like that, or money laundering, and those kind of safeguards, etc. And when you start dealing with different geographies, especially in hostile environments, these issues become even more significant. So we then decided to, we still have the peer-to-peer microlending embedded in BizGees, but we don't do it in the same way as we did before. So we spent a lot of time looking for ways where we weren't going to be taking on the compliances of a bank. And because when you start lending money and receiving money, it's a very fine line between what we were trying to do and being classed as a bank by the authorities. So that's something that we were trying to avoid. And over the years, we've managed to come up with a system which allows us to do pretty much what we were doing before, but in a way that helps the communities that we want to support without the negative downsides. So a negative downside would have been that if that refugee business could not pay back the money, what happens then? And so the people lending the money, how would they feel about the refugee not giving the money back? So those kind of potential downsides is what we try to limit. And now we're in a situation where it doesn't happen. So instead of lending money, our target customers, they buy something from us. We collect the profits from it, put it together as a loan, and then send it out there to the refugees. So when the refugees receive the funds, they receive the funds in the same manner as they were done before. They receive the training, inventory, and business mentoring, they set up the business, and they gradually pay back that money. And so that end is fine. That's not an issue at all. The difference now is that instead of someone in the US lending them money to simply buy a bag which supports a local artist, but also supports the refugees at the same time. Mm-hmm. So this way, the customers is better off because they've actually bought something that is of functional utility to themselves. The artists are better off because they can earn a living, and the refugees are better off because they get to stand on their own 2 feet and become entrepreneurs and create jobs and wealth in the local community. So if you look at the impact there, it all started off by having a basic peer-to-peer micro-lending platform, and then we gradually iterated it and iterated and iterated it. So we identified our stakeholders and then focused on what their needs were, and we did not compromise on their needs. We felt, okay, you know what, if these are, for instance, our customers are Gen Z and millennials. Gen Z and millennials are very demanding of the businesses that they buy from. They want to know where the money is going. They want to know what impact is being generated. They want to know it's eco and ethical friendly. So instead of shying away from our customers' needs, we said, okay, we'll embrace it, and these are your needs. We'll structure and design a solution for you. So one of the needs that a lot of the our customers or potential customers highlighted was that, yes, we get refugees have problems. We want to support them without a question, but we also know that the person next door has the needs as well. We want to support them as well. Mm-hmm. So instead of saying, okay, we can't do one or we can do one and the other, we thought, okay, let's come up with a solution. Let's innovate a solution that meets those needs there. So now we're in a position where we do support the local talent, we do support the local artists, and we also support the refugee communities at the same time. So that all comes by just listening to our customers, understanding what their needs are, and then innovating our solutions to meet their needs, basically.
Wow. Yeah, just to kind of give you guys big kudos and praise. I think it's really brilliant in how you guys created your own ecosystem, as you just summarized at the end there, right? You're helping the investors, you're helping the refugees, and you're helping with the marketing. And, all this is really coming together as a cycle, right? Versus just we have something, we're going to give it to you and you do what you will with it, or, other models like that. And so I think it's really great is, Demian and I talk a lot about the goodviral ecosystem. We want to make sure everything is always integrated with one or the other, or one side is supporting the other, and everything is working together like an ecosystem would. And it sounds like you've really created something like that, and it's creating great impact. So I just wanted to give you big praise and to kind of give our audience a moment to be like, wow, that was amazing.
Well, thank you very much for that. It's been quite difficult in the sense that, as I mentioned, we are using a hybrid business model to achieve what we do. And in terms of the support available, it's not on the same scale as you would have for a standard business. So it's been doubly difficult for us to achieve what we have so far. But I mean, what we have achieved is the permanent achievement. So so the support we have provided to the refugee communities, that makes a permanent impact. The support we are providing to the local town is a permanent impact. So yes, as time goes on, that would magnify as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And one of the things, again, that we're always looking at and trying to think about is how can, well, in our case, not only can we do that as a company, goodviral, but also to inspire and encourage other companies to create business models that basically do things differently. In other words, what I believe is that the standard business model, the standard business really needs to be move into the past because the demands of the world are different now. And I think that that there are some problems that are accelerating. You talked about climate change and some of the other things that are causing refugee issues now, as well as the many other problems that are occurring. And I think that besides individuals, also when we suit up and go to work, when we're doing that, the business that we do on a daily basis, we need to be active in creating solutions to the problems, because they don't go away at any time during the day. So I really, if you could elaborate a little bit more, and this is again in whatever way you feel appropriate, because I feel like you're describing a very complex process, and I'm just there's a lot of information. I'm just trying to understand it as you present it. But can you explain a little bit more, sort of the ideas of how maybe you could tell a standard business to move towards some of the principles that you all have embraced and are doing? In other words, what would you say out there to our listeners, those who are actively working with companies where they have a voice, or our listeners who have a company, in ways that they might be able to combine the two actions of making a profit, as well as taking action towards supporting a cause like they would like to?
I think, one way to explain it is, or one way I have explained this in the past is, we feel that the business model, or the theory of the firm, as in theoretical terms, is evolving. So in the 1950s, it was all about making money. It's pure, simple. You go to work to make money, and that's the end of it. Then, as time went on, businesses realized they had responsibility to the local community as well. So it wasn't just about making money, profit. You're polluting local water resources, or you're taking labor. So you had to give back to society as well. You just couldn't take and take and take and take. So gradually that evolved into a CSR program, which a lot of the organizations would have as a bolt-on. So you have this standard business where everyone's, the core focus is making money all the time, and then you had your CSR program where you go and spend a couple of days a month and go work with a charity or spend some time like that, doing something good. And over time, that CSR program has now moved into the core of the business. And so the way products are generated now, the way services are generated now, the way the relationship with society has emerged, has morphed the organization into a social impact business. So 10 years from now, my prediction is that all the top end innovative businesses will be social impact businesses. Today, a lot of there are organizations out there who are taking a lot of social impact, but they're in denial of the fact that they're doing that social impact, because they're doing it by the by, not realizing they're doing it till they crunch the numbers and they realize, oh wow, we are already doing it. So there are a lot of businesses already doing it. They're not doing it formally in the mainstream of the business, that's all. And as time goes on, they'll build that confidence to say that they are doing it. And I think a lot of the time the CEOs and the decision makers shy away from it because they're not sure that their stakeholder base is ready for it. Right. To give you an example, Unilever recently had some problems with some of the shareholders because they didn't like that direction of it being of the social impact they were creating. Now, Unilever as a business has been doing that for quite a while, and it's nothing new. It's just that they're starting to articulate it in that way. And some of the shareholders just didn't understand it. They just couldn't understand why they're changing from purely from making money to doing what they are, even though they have been doing what they are doing for quite a while now. So as this enters the mainstream, that entire ecosystem that you need to support an organization is gradually moving in that direction as well. So all the Gen Z and millennial investors and professionals coming through, they all are keen to make that impact in the workplace. The Gen X is my generation. For us, it used to be a choice between either or. Thankfully, the work that we're doing is ensuring it's no longer a choice of either or. It's how much time do you spend on making a difference and how much time do you spend earning a decent living. So every time that's been morphing into, you go to work and you come back, you make the difference and you've earned a decent living. So you don't have to split your time between paying the rent and doing the right thing, basically.
Wow, that's very interesting.
I think you're definitely making a good point and highlighting something for everyone listening, including, Demian and I, is, businesses are really moving more into a purpose type model, but with impact, not just purpose of bringing value, but what is that value really doing long term, or how deep is it going? And I think that you're really kind of describing where businesses are going in that new phase of a conscious business, in a sense, rather than looking just for monetization. So thank you for kind of highlighting that for us.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's just that, now with more and more business, there's every so often there's a reconfiguration in business thought. So in the past, it was about systems. Here's a system, you plug people into the system. Now it's more about people. So it's more about you put the people first. And so businesses are very people friendly now in relation to what they were, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so the more people friendly businesses become, the more sensitive they become to the people needs. And those people needs mean society. So people don't leave their values and walk into a business anymore. They bring those values into the business. And where that value match is aligned, you have a great business, because the people working there actually believe in what they're doing and they're very passionate about what they're doing. And that's what we're trying to achieve as business owners, as entrepreneurs, basically.
I think it's really cool, even in terms of but even in terms of an investor side as well. If you're an investor and you're looking to invest in something, they're also moving towards investing in something that does bring profit, but also does help in some way, in some form, to elevate humanity, animals, and the planet. And so I think, BizGees and Arts4Refugees.com, by the way, is a great place to check that out. And so let me pause right there, because Demian, you had something.
No, I just what you made me think of as you're talking about this is that, of course, there's so many different levels of where people are with their business, and of course, there are many people that are just literally in survival mode. It's how do we pay the bills, and keep our business afloat. And as they move forward into better, more secure positions with their business, I could see that the desire to move towards what you're talking about will be there, naturally will occur, and especially as you say, because there's a change in thinking globally. But and so what I really like is that you're bringing to the conscious thought through our podcast here, to our listeners, sort of the objective, the goal. If you're a business with the right ideas in mind, what direction can you move towards as a business? And so I really like that. Just to acknowledge also, of course, that this may be a more modern business model, but of course there are many people operating in older traditional thinking that's not as enlightened. But I love the fact that you're highlighting the fact that the objective in business, or for people, I think in modern day, is not just to make more and more money and get bigger and bigger, but it's also to do better things with their time, their activities, and with their production and their business for people and for everybody, for, as we say, for animals and planet, everybody else. So I love the fact that you're highlighting this, because it seems like you are literally walking the talk. I mean, really doing what it is that for me would be an ideal kind of conversation to have as you're deciding what kind of business you want to be going forward, right? And so thank you for highlighting that. I think it's really important, and I think that for you, it's something that you and your colleagues talk about on a daily basis. But I think that it's very refreshing for me, and I think that a lot of people out there will find it refreshing and inspiring to say, hey, this is right, this is the direction that if we choose which direction we want to go, it's not all about money anymore, right?
Yes, absolutely. Being absolutely right. I think we're quite fortunate to be in an age where one of the advantages of globalization is that we're sitting in different continents, different countries, having these conversations today. Whereas 20 years ago, that just wasn't possible, or it was possible, but it was very, very difficult to do. So as those barriers come down, and the more we can have these conversations globally, the more impact we can have globally.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would love to hear, and I'm sure our audience would love to hear some examples of impact. So could you kind of tell us maybe a couple examples of your work with specifically with Arts4Refugees, and how that's really created a transformational story? If you can think of anyone, I know you got a few, but if you could pick a couple, that'd be great.
I think as examples, one of the businesses that we have supported in northern Uganda, the founder's name was Betty. She's from that region. It's below $5 a day community that she's from. She was married. She's married with 3 children, and they were finding it difficult to earn a decent living, basically. So it's going from job to job to job. So we funded her training. During that training, she was trained to be an entrepreneur. How that meant how to find customers, how to maintain a customer base, how to market to customers, how to organize a business, how to keep business records separate from your own personal records. For instance, that's one of the issues that a lot of these informal businesses have, is that it can get very confusing in terms of whether it's your own. It is my business, it is my money, so why should I keep it separate? But as a business, you get to start to see things differently. And so she now rents solar lamps to a local community, basically. So other members from her community save money by renting a solar lamp in the evening and giving it back to her during the day. She then charges it up and rents it back to them in the evening. So the local community now no longer uses kerosene oil. That stops them from breathing in all the fumes as well, and also helps kerosene oil lamps have a flicker, so that then goes down as well. So that's, in a nutshell, that's one example of we've supported a micro business who generates that local impact locally at a local price point as well. So that's quite important, because a lot of these communities, they in the past, they've been giving solutions that aren't custom designed for themselves. So someone has thought, okay, that'd be a great idea if they did it, giving them a bit of support to do it, but not realizing it doesn't actually meet their needs on the ground. Whereas these solutions actually meet their needs on the ground, and they're always developing further locally as well.
Excellent. Yes. So, so besides, I'm going to ask about this because I know our listeners are thinking about this now at this stage. I know that I am. So besides the obvious of donating money to your organization, or to just looking up and finding out more about you through your website, what are some of the maybe 1 or 2 ways that people can do in their everyday life to bring great impact to your mission?
I'd say just sharing what we do with their friends and family would be ideal, because we're at a stage where we are building up a community of users and supporters of what we do. So I'm not going to stretch myself or ask them to stretch themselves to buy a handbag or something like that from us. If they want to do it, they're more than welcome to do it. But what I would recommend is, please, if you like what we do, please tell someone else that you like what we do, who we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. That would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just kind of want to put an extra plug in for arts4refugees.com. That's another piece of, for example, Betty, she's got the example of really serving the community with a utility need, right? And then we have Arts for Refugees, which is a great piece of what you guys do as well, helping specific artisans with who make art pieces to sell or make music, like you talked about earlier. One of the, when people go to your website, arts4refugees.com, what I thought was really cool is the kind of talking about the history of art within the refugees and or who refugees make arts for. And Bob Marley being one of them, one of the iconic ones that we can think about. And you even post a little bit about him and others, many others on there. So if you even have a history or an interest of who's listening, if you have an interest in art with refugees, go to their website, arts4refugees.com, and check out the history of that. And it's very, very interesting. I just want to kind of put that plug in there because, we can think about the utilities like Betty, who's making a really good impact for the community. But then there's those who have a creative outlet and they want to tell their story in a different form. And like Bob Marley did. And, his talks was always about peace, love, and unity. And I think that was really, obviously it's been impactful because here we are years later still listening to him. And so to be able to help these artisans tell these stories is another way to contribute to the impact. And so I just kind of wanted to put in that plug for our audience here. But tell me a little bit about the, before we kind of move into a closing here, but tell me a little bit about the art itself. What are some of the art things that you've seen some of these refugees make that you're just like, these are really cool?
With the Swaz Valley artisans that we work with, I mean, they do a lot of the top end hand woven stuff. So pashminas come from there. Cashmere wool wraps come from there. They do embroidery on bags, for instance. So if you want a bag with hand embroidery, they do that as well. So they do a lot of these really top end bespoke work. And we've worked with some designers in the UK. One designer, we co-created a emerald studded handbag. That was, where the emeralds and the motifs were organized in the Swaz Valley, and the bag was then put together in the UK. So that's how sophisticated some of the work is that they were doing.
Yeah, when I think refugees, I think we have a certain picture in our mind of what that looks like, usually from conflict zones, right? So emeralds don't really come to mind, but that's really great that's available.
I mean, one of the reasons we call it Arts for Refugees and we have the history section there is because of that. So if you look at, say, all the artists there on the Arts for Refugees for the last 100 years page there, they all are people who were displaced, who've gone to the host country, and they've added to the local culture and local society, basically. So you mentioned Bob Marley, he's one. He was in Jamaica because of political turmoil. He had to leave. He came to the UK and he carried on. And there are hundreds of other artists out there like him. And we've worked with students from Oxford University on highlighting who these people are. So they spend 5 days with us as interns. During this time, they write an article about refugee issues and also identify a Pacific refugee that they wanted to highlight. So over the last year or so, we've worked with around 30 students from Oxford on this, and we're currently working with another 9. And so there's a lot more to come there as well. So they will identify Pacific refugee artists who moved to the UK or the US and then contributed to the host community there. And you'll be amazed on some of the names there. So if you remember the band Fugees, that's the spin-off Refugees. So when we normally listen to their music, we don't really pick up on it till we actually look at the story behind it. And that's what we've been trying to do there.
Great. Yeah, I just want to, for our listeners, I just want to sort of, my closing idea, you might say, is just to talk about the idea of helping refugees and just to sort of bring it to the forefront of our minds, because of the fact that so many times these people are from places that are so far away from our own country or that are so different than where we might live. But if somebody, for example, on your street, if their house was on fire and they were in the street, of course, you would go out and you would help those people. And you need to think about these refugees as exactly like that. Some kind of thing caused them that they didn't want in their lives to be displaced or to really need help. And of course, we want to help them. And so I just want to sort of talk about that, because the idea of refugees, unfortunately, is almost controversial. It's almost like people talk about, oh, the problem is all the refugees, but really the problem is what caused them to be refugees in the first place. And our responsibility as human beings is to help them. And it's what we want to do anyway. We just have to think of it that way. So what I really want to say again is to remind everybody what it is that you all are trying to accomplish. And what we are trying to promote that needs to be accomplished is that there's people out there that need help, and we can help them, and we should. And if we do, we'll feel better. They'll have a better life. The whole world will improve. And it's just that simple. And so again, sort of, as I said, kind of my closing thoughts is thank you for all the efforts and the work that you're doing. We want to raise the consciousness and awareness of different possibilities and ways that we can think about these people that do need the help and try to offer it to them. So again, thank you for that.
Well, pleasure. I mean, it's I should be thanking you for helping me get the word out there. So again, thank you very much for that.